Hi everybody, this is Rich Leiter and welcome to my channel, which I have renamed. It's no longer called Thoughts on Writing, it's called The Naked Booktuber. Because I noticed that when you type in Thoughts on Writing on the YouTube search bar, you don't get me. So when you type in The Naked Booktuber, you do. Anyway, so I wanted to just do a short addendum or add a few more thoughts to my initial video book review of Lolita, and I'll leave the link to that below. And here are my additional points. I have a couple of more talking points. The first one is, after the end of Lolita, Vladimir Nabokov has an afterwards, in which he recounts the genesis of Lolita, how he began writing it, and the stumbling blocks he encountered trying to get the thing published, since everybody thought it was this dirty pornographic novel. But Nabokov himself says that of the four publishers that he approached, after they got over the initial shock of the subject matter itself, he says that I don't know if all of them were just one or a couple, but he says they didn't really read the rest of the novel after the first part. They never did the second part because they found it so boring. In other words, it kind of corroborates what I was saying before. This is not really a pornographic novel. It's not some kind of a juicy novel in the titillating novel in the vein of The Story of O, for example. He couldn't even get people to read the damn novel all the way through. It wasn't titillating enough for them. So on the one hand, they wouldn't publish it because the subject matter was too racy. But on the other hand, it was so boring to them that when they found out that it was a serious novel, that they couldn't even muster the patience to read it all the way through. So there you go. Now I said in my initial video that I considered the character or the temperament of Humbert Humbert to be to overlap that of Nabokov, the author of the book, and I still maintain that. I know Nabokov, would have you believe that, this is just a separate and distinct entity from he himself personally, the writer. But I do maintain that there is an overlap between the two of them, and this is the reason why. Now, from what I know of Nabokov, what from anyone knows of Nabokov, he was not a sexual predator. He was not a child molester, a pedophile like Humbert Humbert is in the book. And I say not that we know of. For anyone to accuse Nabokov of himself being a sexual predator, this would be wild speculation with absolutely no basis in fact whatsoever. Okay, so in that respect, you can speculate about it as all you want to, but there's no evidence suggesting that Nabokov is himself a predator. So in that respect, of course, they're completely different, the two characters. But what I meant when I talked about overlap is the temperament, the aesthetics of Humbert Humbert. It does seem very similar to Nabokov. As I say, they are both extremely elitist. They are both extremely scholarly, erudite characters. Also, in the afterwards of Lolita, Nabokov says that when he wrote the story, he had absolutely no intention of trying to give us a morality play, trying to teach us a lesson about how evil pedophilia is. He just said he wanted to write a story, and he's not interested in any grand moral purpose. He claims. A fellow like Tolstoy, in his latter years, whatever he wrote He always felt that it was necessary for him to have a moral preaching wrapped up in his novel. For instance, I find that the death of Ivan Ilyich, as great as it is, does have very definite shrill overtones of a sermon being told to us at the same time. So in his latter years, Tolstoy seems to not be able to make up his mind whether he wants to be an artist or whether he wants to be a preacher. Not so with Nabokov. Nabokov has no intention of inculcating us on the evils and the dangers of pedophilia at all, and he's indifferent to it. He says, and well, Humbert certainly being the pedophile that he is completely indifferent to anything but himself and his own pleasures. He is completely solipsistic, put it that way. So again, in this respect, I'm not saying that Nabokov is immoral in the way that Humbert is, but morality doesn't really enter into his aesthetic, he says, at all when he tells a tale. I still maintain that the temperament of Nabokov, from what I've read of the real life of Sebastian Knight, he is kind of an elitist. I mean, a brilliant elitist with good reason to be an elitist. He is a snob. He's an elitist. And obviously Humbert is also, as I said in my previous podcast. So there's that. So I'm not trying to confuse the pedophilia of Humbert with the, I'm not trying to imply that in any way, shape, or form that Nabokov is also a predator. That's all. We can lay that to rest, I think. The third thing is that, I forgot to mention, there's so much to mention, that this novel, Lolita, is being told from the point of view of Humbert. He's in jail. He's behind bars, having killed Claire Quilty. He's been arrested. He's going to be put on trial. And while he's awaiting trial, he is writing his account of what happened. That's what the novel Lolita is. It's his account of his relationship with Lolita. And as other people have very, very aptly pointed out, Humbert is, if nothing else, a manipulator, a control freak, a very calculating sort of predator. So you can't really take everything that he says at face value. However, at the same time that you can take what Humbert says at face value, you do have to take some things at face value, because if you have cast a jaundiced eye on every single word and sentence which is written by Humbert, well, there's really not any point to reading this novel, because it will ensure, if you're that suspicious of everything that Humbert says, well, you're not. What's the reason for reading the novel? You're not going to be at all emotionally involved in this novel. You might as well not read it. So I think that you do have to take certain things that he says at face value, just for the sake of being able to have a satisfying literary experience. I personally take at face value what Humbert says when he claims that Dolores, Lolita, told him that when she was at summer camp, that she had sexual intercourse with this guy Charlie, this camper Charlie, and so she was not a virgin by the time Humbert began molesting her. And I choose to take that at face value, because if you take nothing at face value, the story just becomes, I don't know, like I said before, there's no reason to read it anymore. So that's the third point that I wanted to make. One more point I want to make is this. Now, I've noticed that, I can't say almost everybody, but the few reviews that I've read, focus pretty much on the issue of pedophilia, the predatory nature of Humbert, his disgusting sexually predatory nature, the way he really, the way Dolores or Lolita gets such a raw deal that her childhood is robbed, stolen. She has to run away from this monster in the end. So everyone seems, not everyone, but the ones I've listened to focus on that. Now, I'm a different kind of reviewer. I tend, in whatever I'm reading, and for that matter, whatever I'm looking at, if I'm looking at a work of art, painting, I tend to be somebody who pays not so much attention to the ideas that are being expressed, but the way that they are being expressed. I mean, ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody's got ideas, you know. My grandmother, my Polish grandmother, who came from the old country, who didn't get any education, even in a high school education, she just kind of milked the goats. My grandmother had plenty of ideas. Ideas are all over the place. We all have them. The important thing for me is, how are they expressed? I mean, novels, after all, are constructed out of words and sentences. And what interests me above all is how the writer is able to use language, construct sentences and construct paragraphs, and what his choice of word or her choice of words are. That's what interests me, the actual flesh and blood, the actual substance of a work of art, not just the idea. I mean, you could have a great idea for a story, but if you don't express it right, or if you express it poorly, who cares what the idea is? I'd rather have a mundane subject written about brilliantly than have a stupendous subject written about poorly. So for me, and the same thing goes for, and this is the reason why in my particular review of Lolita, and in other book reviews for that matter too, I tend to lean more towards the actual quality of the writing than I do towards the subject matter, and I believe I did that here. I mean, just to give you an example, Margaret Thatcher, the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, said that she thought that Francis Bacon, the painter, was an absolutely disgusting, horrible painter, and she would never want to look at his paintings. They're just horrible. All of these hideous sides of beef and blood spattered all over the place. So Margaret Thatcher, it's not her cup of tea. Margaret Thatcher is completely overwhelmed by the subject matter of a work of art, as are many, many, many people. And they always will be. The subject matter is of prime importance. I'm not like that. I would feel perfectly happy waking up every single morning to a triptych by Francis Bacon, and if I saw blood and guts and sides of beef right in front of my eyes when I awoke every morning, wouldn't bother me in the least, because I'm interested in the application of color and the way that the pigment is actually put down. That's more important to me than the actual subject matter. If that's beautiful, then to me it's a beautiful painting. So when I read a book like Lolita, which has such explosive subject matter, I immediately become interested not in the subject matter. I'm interested in, how does he handle it? How does he actually write about it? And as I say, I was quite bowled over by it. I found it quite brilliant. So my perspective, my take on reviewing works of art, I tend to lean a lot more heavily on the actual skill, the actual material of the work, the sentences, the language, the pigment, than I am merely in the subject matter. And that concludes my addendum to my original podcast on Lolita. Thank you.